In this video lecture, we are going to go over assignment 4, color grading, stylistic editing. We'll start with just going through our assignment sheet, and then we're just going to go through every single adjustment layer that we have, and we have a handout on all of these different adjustment layers and what they do. So we'll go through that. That'll end this video, and in the next video, we will do the demo on actually doing our stylistic editing. So for this assignment, what we're going to need to do is working with 3 source files provided of your own DSLR photographs. We're going to use the various methods and technique covered in class to first color correct each image. Once color correction is completed, use the various adjustment layers to color grade each image to create a mood, tone, or theme. Use the adjustment layer masks to localize certain adjustments. So there are parameters to this, and each image should be color graded differently, so they should each have a different tone, mood, or theme. And then we need minimum 5 to 7 layers per image, adjustment layers per image. And with those, 3 of the layers need to be localized adjustments. So the assignment will be graded using the following criteria: facility in using adjustment layers to color grade the image, facility in using advanced selections, layer masks to localize adjustments made to the image, sophistication of our file structure, correct file and layer labeling, and creativity. Remember, with the creativity, please do not do just exactly what I did for the demos. And we have, a sample layer order right here. So we have, our levels or curves, and we have, a few of these things. So we're just going to go through our adjustment layers now. So what are our adjustment layers? An adjustment layer applies color or tonal adjustments to the image without permanently changing pixel values. The color and tonal adjustments are stored in the adjustment layer and applied to all the layers below it. You can correct multiple layers by making a single adjustment rather than adjusting each layer separately. You can discard your changes and restore the original image at any time. So adjustment layers provide the following advantages: non-destructive edits, which we've been talking about the whole semester so far. You can try different settings and re-edit the adjustment layer at any time. You can also reduce the effect of an adjustment layer by lowering the opacity. Selective editing, which is what the main sort of item that we're doing with this assignment is. You can paint on an adjustment layer's image mask to apply an adjustment to part of an image. Later, you can control which parts of the image are adjusted by re-editing the layer mask. You can vary the adjustment by painting on the mask with different tones of gray. Ability to apply adjustments to multiple images, copy and paste adjustment layers between images, and apply the same color and tonal adjustments. Adjustment layers have many of the same characteristics as other layers. You can adjust their opacity and blending modes. You can group them. You can apply adjustments to specific layers. Likewise, you can turn their visibility on and off to apply or preview the effect. So with that, we will just go in. We're going to just use this image for right now, and we're just going to go through pretty much all of our adjustment layers. So remember, our adjustment layers, I always use the half black, half white circle for them. We also have, our single adjustments right here that we can use also. So this half black, half white circle, we just get our nice little menu of all of our different adjustment layers. So we went over solid color when we did our colorization assignment. Then we have gradient and pattern. These are mainly solid color adjustment layers, or solid adjustment layers, or fill layers. We're really not going to use these. I don't want to use these. If I go to gradient, you can see that it's just going to put a gradient on my image, and I can, go to sort of any of these. I think I want, it to be a blue, and I guess I could change the blending mode to color, and it does something, but nothing really that great. Same with patterning. We have all these different types of patterns that we could use. Like, it was water one. Again, something that we really won't be using. But what I do want to talk about are all of these ones. So we have, 4 different sort of areas of adjustment layers. We have, our solid fill layers at the top, our solid color gradient pattern. Then we have our tones. So this is brightness, contrast, levels, curves, exposure. Under that we have color. Then we have sort of our special ones. So we're going to just start with the tones, and we're going to start with brightness and contrast. Brightness and contrast is a super simple one. It lets us be able to have 2 sliders where we can change the brightness of the image, and we can change the contrast of the image. I personally don't like using this one. It's the simplest of our tone correction adjustment layers, but you really don't get that much that you get to do with it. It's just, 2 little sliders. We can't really control too much with it. So that's our brightness and contrast. Then we have our levels, which we've talked in great detail about levels before, but we'll just do it again real quick. So remember, our levels lets us get a full tonal range in our image by looking at our histogram. This actually looks pretty good already. But again, we can darken areas. We can bring up our highlights, just add some contrast in there. We can also color correct from here if we want to do. Again, we're not going to spend time on levels right now. We will spend some time on curves though. So curves is pretty much levels to the next level. We get so much more that we can do inside of here. So how curves works is we have our input levels right here, which are the exact same as just regular levels, and then we have our output levels as these little dots that are on our graph. So we really won't use those that much, but we might use these. And then in levels we have that middle slider. Well, with that middle slider we can only move a certain way. In here we can actually pick where we want that middle level to be, and we can actually change that tone. So if we look, we have our nice little curves image with a diagram. So we can put points on here to change it. We can also do the image adjustment tool. So if we click on the top left icon that we have, the hand, we can actually go over our image, and let's say that I want to go down in here, it's going to give me somewhere in the shadows. So if I click on that and I move up, it's going to move that up, or if I move it down, it'll move it down on my image. So we can also move these points, and let's say I wanted to add like contrast to my image. We could do a nice little S curve like that. So we can see the difference already. That might be a little bit too much, but again we can always change our opacity. Let me open my opacity at 30, and it makes the image a little bit more rich by doing that. We can also color balance in here just like we did with levels, if we wanted to. After that we have our exposure. And with the exposure, we have 3 different sliders that we can play with. What those sliders will do is our exposure, adjust our highlights without affecting dark areas. Our gamma will adjust our midtones, or offset will adjust midtones, and our gamma will adjust dark tones without affecting highlights. So if we go to our exposure, it is just affecting the highlights. If you notice, like down in here, it's really not changing too much. I will say using the exposure it can be a little difficult because it goes really quickly. Like with our sliders, it'll do a lot to our image. I really never use the offset too much on here, and then our gamma correction, you can see the differences. Kind of like the image a little bit darker. Maybe I'll turn my opacity down on this one just a little bit. So those are all of our tones. With the tones, I personally mainly just use levels and I'll use curves. If anything, I'll actually use levels for my black and white points, and then I'll use curves for my midtones. So after that, we get into color. First one that we have is Vibrance. And Vibrance just gives us two sliders, which are Vibrance and Saturation. We also have the Hue Saturation adjustment layer that we can use. So this one works similar to how our Brightness Contrast work. We can't do too much in it. We don't have too much, wiggle room. But with Vibrance, what Vibrance will do is if we bring that up, it's really only affecting the muted tones of our image. So if we look, if we get somewhat closer, so I'm just hitting Command plus and Command minus to zoom in. If we look, at sort of like this green that's on the mountain, you can see how it's just sort of like bringing up those like muted tones that were around there. And the saturation will just bring up all of our tones, sort of in a blanket way. So if you did want to use Vibrance Saturation, I would maybe just play with the Vibrance. I wouldn't play with the Saturation as much. After that, we have our Hue Saturation, which we talked about a little bit beforehand when we were doing our color correction, but we're going to dive deeper into it. So again, we have our presets. We're not going to use those. We're just going to leave that on default. Then we have our master, and this is where we can actually go into any different color that we want to. So hue is just going to change the hue of our image. It's going to just shift our colors, sort of crazy. Okay, we'll keep it right there. Saturation will actually add tone in there, or we can desaturate there. And then the lightness is going to be how bright or how dark our tones actually are. If we do go into our masters and we go somewhere down here, which I might actually just move these back to 0 so we can see that. Let's say that I want to just focus on my greens. We can see on this little color spectrum that we have that it's only going to be affecting these areas. So I'm just going to bring my saturation up so that I can see exactly where it's affecting. And the greens actually, this isn't really green. So I can actually go in here and move this out so that I can see what I'm affecting. And maybe I drag these back in a little bit. So maybe I'm just going to affect those areas. I usually leave it at 100 just so I can see what is going on. We can also use these eyedroppers to pick a color. So this will pick a color for us. This will add to it or subtract. So I kind of want to subtract all of this. There we go. So then we can just change the hue of those certain areas. So if you notice now when we zoom in, that all of this was able to change color. Doesn't look great, but doesn't look terrible. Maybe we'll go into our reds and we'll see where our reds are. Kind of like where our reds are. Maybe we just change the hue of our reds just a tiny bit. So we can see, the difference already right there. After hue saturation, we have color balance, which we've already gone over, so we're not going to bother with that. Then we have black and white. So this will convert our image to black and white. Personally, if we are going to be doing black and white, I would suggest just hitting the black and white adjustment layer and not really messing with any of these, but going into our tones, so using like levels or curves to, adjust everything. If I start, messing with these, we can get some really odd areas. You can see how it sort of gets like this weird, like, digital artifacting that starts happening. So like we get like those weird areas. Like if I zoom in on my image, see how odd it gets in there. So if you are going to play with these sliders, do it very, very sparingly. But that's a way that we can change our images to black and white. I did not want to make a copy of that. I wanted to delete it, and I want to delete that one too. So after black and white, we have our photo filter. We talked about our photo filter before. Remember, we used that in our restoration assignment, and we have all these different ones that we can put on. Change the density of it. Remember, we keep preserved luminosity on so that the color adjusts compared to the tone. So if it's a super bright highlight, it's not turning just solid red, like so. After, turn that one off. Just turn some of these off. After that, we have our channel mixer, and again, all of these, we have everything down in here. So channel mixer controls a targeted color channel using a mix of existing color channels in the image. Color channels are grayscale images represented by the tonal values of the color components of an image. When you use the channel mixer, you are adding and subtracting grayscale data from a source channel to a targeted channel. So right now we are on our red output, and it's at 100. All of them will have totals of 100. So let's say we're on our blue channel and we take it down. It brings it to 52. Bring this one up to 42 and this one up to 8. You can see how we changed the color there. I would highly suggest trying to get all the numbers to be around 100 again, just because it starts to get a little odd if we don't. But it's it's very subtle, but it's really nice to use. And then we have our constant, which we're going to just leave that at 0 for now, because we do not need to worry about using that. Then our last one that we have in here is color lookup. And color lookup is just sort of various like presets that we can use. So if we go under the 3D LUT file, we've got all these different ones. So let's say that I do night for day, it's going to make the whole image dark and it's going to make it blue. I could, play with my opacity on it to just sort of like, now it has sort of like that storm feel to it, which is kind of nice. I might just add another one. And, there's sort of like bleach bypass, which does not look good. Foggy night looks kind of good, but maybe we just, bring that down a little bit too. Or, they've got like Kodak, so that it sort of references, a film. Same with these Fujis, it references film. We have, fall colors, crisp winter. There's all these different ones that we can use on here. And then the last ones that we have are our special ones. We really won't use these too much. If anything, I use gradient map out of these, and that's about it. Invert will just invert our image, so it's going to make it into negative. All that does. If we, are scanning in film, you can use that to just fix it. Then we have posterize, and with the levels on posterize, what it's doing is for each level, it's corresponding to our RGB channel. So it's giving us 4 reds, 4 greens, 4 blues. So in all reality, we have 12 colors in here. If I turn it down to like 2, you can see we only have like 6 colors in there. And as we start, bringing this up, we start getting rid of all of that. But again, this is one that I really never use. It looks way too digital and fake, I feel like. Then we have our threshold. So the way that threshold works is our threshold level right now is at 128. And if we remember, 127, 128 is middle gray. And we can move this slider back and forth on here. And what is happening is, wherever our threshold level is, whatever is to the right of that is going to be completely white, whatever's to the left is going to be completely black. So this could be good, like, if you wanted to be making stamps out of, an image, you could use this as sort of like a starting off point. After that, we have our gradient map. And I love the gradient map, and we have all these different types of them that we could use. I'm going to put this one on. So what this is doing is, it's looking at my image, it's taking the sort of tones that I have in my image and placing colors on them through a gradient. Like if we look at this one, it's maybe a little bit easier. So all the shadow areas are in, this purplish color, and then all the highlights are in this tealish color. And we can actually double click on there and change it around a little bit if we wanted to. Maybe we go to one of our iridescent ones, and I could actually, add some more gradients to it. I can, change the colors of them. And it makes kind of a cool effect. I'm wondering if I just put it to color looks weird. But maybe, with this, I, bring it down just a little bit. But the gradient map's a really fun one. I do like using the gradient map. Then we have selective color. And the way that selective color works is it allows for the modification of a certain color without affecting other colors. So I'm going to turn those off for now, just so that we can see this, and maybe we'll go into our, we'll do our reds. So we have, our cyan, our magenta, and you can see that it's only affecting the reds. Remember, when we were doing this before, our reds were mainly, like, in the tree trunk. So you can see how it's, just sort of affecting those. And that is pretty much all of our different adjustment layers. This is a lot of information. It just takes some time playing around with all these. I highly suggest, just opening up each of these adjustment layers and just seeing what they do, and just playing around with it. So that is it for this video lecture. In the next video lecture, we will use all these adjustment layers to selectively edit images. If you have any questions, feel free to get in contact. Thanks. In this video lecture, we're going to do our intro to assignment 3, colorization. Using the Library of Congress's image chosen for our restoration assignment, assignment 1, colorize the image. The whole image does not need to be completed, but important subject matter should be colorized. There should be a minimum of 25 solid color adjustment layers. Please make sure to use colors that would In this video lecture, we are going to do our intro to assignment 3, colorization. Using the Library of Congress's image chosen for our restoration assignment, assignment 1, colorize the image. The whole image does not need to be completed, but important subject matter should be colorized. There should be a minimum of 25 solid color adjustment layers. Please make sure to use colors that would be in the photograph. Our goal is a historical restoration and colorization. And you can see how the assignment will be graded. Facility and using cleansing peeling tools and others to repair the damaged information. We should have already done that, so that's an easy 10 points right there. Facility and using levels adjustments to control the tonal range of the image. We should have done that already also, so 20% of your grade should already be in at this point. Again, you can, add more if you want to your repairs. You can also change your levels up, feel free to do that. Facility and using solid color adjustment layers to colorize the photograph, that's worth 40 points. And facility and using layer masks is worth 30 points. All of this is about, getting a nice color and making sure that we're painting in the lines or, making selections for our masks. Sophistication of our file structure, so logical ordering, removal of extraneous layers, making folders, things like that, and groups. And then correct file and layer labeling is also worth 5 points. So this will be name it name a file, or, whatever. It could be assignment 3, doesn't really matter, as long as it has your name and something after it. It'll be due Sunday, November 5th, and then we have our discussion board replies due November 8th. So we do have a handout for this, and our handout is right here, and it gives us, almost step by step of what we need to do. So this method of colorizing an image has the advantage of preserving the luminosity of the underlying image while allowing the added color to be seen. You can also control the amount of color by using the opacity slider in the layers palette. So the first thing that we're gonna have to do is make sure that we're in RGB mode. And in order to do that, so I have 2 up here already. This is one that I am going to start working on, that I already made into a color image. But let's just say that it isn't. Let's say that I want it to go to CMYK color for some reason. What it's going to do is it's going to discard an adjustment layer, which I don't want to do. Let's see, mode, grayscale. So it will merge everything. We're just going to do discard, and it'll just make it into a new layer, which is perfectly fine. I will, be zooming in to see how well, you did with repairs. As you can see with mine, I'm at 300%. It looks pretty good. It might not be perfect, but it's okay. I'm missing spots in the background. It looks like maybe a spot or 2 on his face. So that's the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we go to image mode. Change the blending mode color, and then paint. So there's 2 ways that we can do this. We know about using solid fill adjustment layers. So we have, our solid color, which let's just say that I pick a blue. If I change the blending mode on this to color, which is all the way at the bottom, so where we have normal right here, this is where we have our blending modes. If we change color, you can see it just colored, the image how it thought it should be. Again, this color does not work. Let's say that I'm looking for something, I don't know, maybe we'll start with skin tone actually. And you can see, as we move our color around in our color picker, you're not going to want super vibrant colors like this, probably. And you can see that they actually go down as we start going darker. But I'm probably going to be somewhere more in this range for now, I think. And again, if the color isn't perfect, that's perfectly fine. So at this point, what we can do is we need to, paint. So if we're thinking about how layer masks function, we have black that hides, white reveals. So right now everything is revealed. I can either paint with black on my brush tool, so I went to my brush tool, and I could always paint with black in all of the areas that I don't want this color. Or instead of that, I could Command I to invert that layer mask so that it's completely black. And then I can switch from black to white by using the shortcut key X. And then I can go ahead and just paint in the areas that I want actually painted, or that I want this color. So this is one way of doing it with that handout. The other way that we could go about doing this that might be a little bit easier, I'm just going to hit Command Z to get rid of that, is before we even pick our color, or after we pick our color, we can always do a selection instead. So I might go ahead and use my lasso tool, and I'm actually going to switch to the magnetic lasso. I'll start with polygonal lasso tool. So I'm going to start with the polygonal lasso tool, or not polygonal, just regular lasso tool. And I'm just going to make, a little, did not want to do that. I want to make sure that I'm on add to selection. And I am just going to pick all the areas that are skin tone. And it's not going to be, a perfect, not going to be perfect, that's okay. So, we're getting close, I can, do the same thing down here, do the same thing over here. And then after that, I can actually, zoom in and I can refine it. I think I'm going to actually use the magnetic lasso tool for this. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift L, and then Shift L again. And I am just going to go around all of these areas to bring all of this in that I need. I didn't want to bring in that bottom section, so I'm going to start on the outside, Option click, and then make sure to get rid of that. So this is sort of the more tedious part of this assignment, is trying to go around and select everything. But doing this is going to possibly save you time compared to going ahead and just painting paint. I use both ways of doing this, so it all just depends on what I'm doing. For something like this, I'm going to want, a good selection. So we're, able to go back and, use the things that we've been using to do this assignment. So we go with that. That's looking good. Go ahead and slowly try and do this. You can feel free to speed up the video if you want, because it's probably going to take another minute to 2 minutes, or you can just sort of sit here. you know, if you realize while you've like when you figure out what the assignment is that you aren't sort of happy with it, or with your image that you chose, you can always go ahead and pick another image. The only problem is you would have to do the restoration and all that sort of stuff, which is not fun, but it's it's something. It all depends on what you want to get from the assignment. I'm not sure if that's actually correct where I did that, but we're going to leave it for now. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect either because when we go into your fine-tune editing, we're going to have to fix some little things, but we want to get this as perfect as possible at the moment. Which again, I'll go back through this to see that I actually got it correct. And you can see I'm just doing little bits and pieces here and there. I don't want to do all of it at one time. It makes it easier on me to be able to just get certain sections in here. Okay, so that's looking good. These areas in, narrow this up a little bit. For this section, I'm just going to go and try and get all of this. Yeah, here, that little strand. I can go back and fix that later. I will go back to this. Got this little section. Okay, so it's pretty much perfect right there now. So now that I've done that, what I could do actually is I could delete this layer mask and then add a new layer mask. And we can see how that looks. So it looks okay. The skin tone definitely isn't where it needs to be. It can definitely be changed a little bit. At this point, I might go in with my brush tool and fine tune this, because my main thing with this is making sure that I have everything in that I need to before I start doing more. Because one thing that I am going to do on these images is I'm probably going to have to use multiple layers and multiple tones to get a proper skin tone. If you watched the Vox video, you will see that they had to use like 30 different layers just for a skin tone to get a proper skin tone. There we go with that. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go a little bit closer in. So I'm going to have 500. I want to get rid of the stuff on the eyes because the eyes are not that color. So I might just get rid of all the stuff for the eyes right now. Because that way I will go back and do the eyes on their own. Need to bring back that section of the ear, take off that section. I got a little messed up. Take off this section that came a little bit too far in. Bring this back in. I didn't get some of those areas. But looking at it, it's looking pretty good at this point. So I have my skin one, at least. Oh, I actually didn't do the rest of the eyes. I should do the rest of the eyes right now. I got caught up. So I'm just going to, do the eyes on their own right now. Because I want to, get this as perfect as possible. The more time I spend on this, the better everything else will look. So I'm going to actually go into here really small, and I'm going to get rid of this because I want to make sure that I can actually fill those sections in properly at a later time. And then, there's some little areas that I missed. Again, I'm being very particular about this, but it's going to make it easier in the long run for us if we do this. Okay, so I forgot another eye. I keep forgetting eyes. I am sorry about that. Just get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. I might do, a save at this point. I'm going to do a file save as, and I'm just going to call this, colorization. I'm just going to save mine to the desktop again. And now that we've done this, what we can actually do is we can either go ahead and duplicate this layer and then change the color, or we can just put a new color on and then clip it down. It's going to be doing the exact same thing, so we'll go through both ways of doing that. So I'm just going to, duplicate that, and you can see the difference already in there. There's a little bit. But what I might do is I might double click on this, and maybe I want to, I don't know, maybe I want to add a little bit of red in. So that's a little much, but I can turn my opacity down on this. And the skin is looking a lot better already. It was very yellow and sort of jaundicey there. It's looking a little bit better now. Another thing that I could do is I can, go to solid color, and I'm going to pick a like purplish color right now. And once I've done that, I can then right click and I can create a clipping mask. So now it's only on them. It's doing the exact same thing. Maybe with this one, turn down to like 20, and we can, sort of zoom in on them, see what the difference looks like. So it's looking okay. It's not perfect, but it's something. I personally don't like this way of doing it. I'm going to release the clipping mask, and I'm going to make a selection of that, and then go ahead and do that. Oh, I didn't put it on color. That's something that I have to make sure to do. Put it on color. That's looks better than it did. And we can always go back and forth with this. One thing that I just realized is like I didn't do the nails, or I left the nails in, which I think is perfectly fine to do at the moment. But we have this little bit. I might go ahead and make a grouping, and maybe I'll just call this skin, and then I can put all these pieces into there, and then I can go ahead and do another selection, or I can go ahead and paint. Like let's say his shirt should, well, maybe make his shirt blue. So I'm going to do a solid color adjustment layer. I'm going to pick maybe a blue like that. Again, I'm going to my blending modes. I'm going to go to color. And at this point, I'm going to Command I to invert it. And then using my brush tool, I can paint it in. So again, there's, two different ways that we can go about doing this. They're going to give us the exact same results, but we can, pick which way works better for us. So I'm just going to start by, coloring pretty much all of this in. I don't think that I'm going to get the buttons because I don't want the buttons to have a color to them. The stitching's going to have a color on it, which is fine. I might not fill it in completely right now, which is okay because we will go through ways of, sort of fixing that, but I just want to get at least like an outline done around here. So I got somewhat of an outline now. Now I can, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go around the button because I don't want to bring the button in. I will change the color of the button to something else on these. I'm just trying to make sure to get where all of the buttons are, and then I'm going to go through and outline everything. So again, this is just, another way that we can go about doing this. You can make the selection first if you wanted to, or you could, do the layer mask. It doesn't matter to me which way you decide to use. It's all up to you. Make sure to get this button down here. Okay, so from there, I can go ahead and I can just, get close. I'm in at 300%, which is probably good. And I can just slowly but surely start to paint this in. And my brush for the hardness right now is at 30%, so it's a somewhat soft brush, mainly so that we don't get that sort of like weird edge happening. That's my main thing, is that I don't get a weird edge. I would rather have it, be a little bit softer. And I painted outside the lines there a little bit, so I'm going to just switch back and forth between black and white by hitting X. And now we're getting into, these areas, which I might need to actually make another brush, or I might have to change the shape of my brush for some of these areas in here. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to change it for that. So remember, for us to change our brush, all we're gonna do is we're gonna open up our brush settings. Might just do something like this for now, just to get into those areas, because then it's at least giving me like the tiniest bit of an outline around here. I can always make it a little bit larger. And again, if you want, feel free to, skip ahead a little bit in the video because this is going to take me some time. So you can see, even, it takes me a while to do these types of things. And, I sort of just, I did, mess up a little bit and went outside with the thumb. But the nice thing is, since I'm covering it with this blue, you really can't see it anymore. So I'm happy about that. So again, this assignment honestly is more of a patience thing than anything. It takes time to do these things, and if we want to do it, really well, it's going to take forever. I know that we only have 2 weeks for this. That's why I don't expect everything. Like on an image like this, we just get the people done. Perfectly fine. That is more than enough for us at the moment. But I'm just slowly but surely going around this one. You can see I'm, zoomed into 300%. I could probably zoom out to 200% for this. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect at this moment. I can, always go in closer and fix it up. But again, I just want to try and get an outline of this, because having an outline is going to make all of these things so much easier on us. That is why I normally will actually do the selection tools for this, because it just makes it so much easier, at least in my eyes. But again, I'm just one person at this point. So I messed up a little bit right here. I'm going to come back to just grab that out. We have, pretty much all of this done at this point, or pretty close. Again, I'm not super far zoomed in. I'm in at 200%, just so that I can make sure that I see where I'm actually at on my edges. So this is going to need, something smaller in here. Might as well just use something smaller on this section too, just to make sure. And again, this takes time. I feel like I need to talk the whole time while I'm doing this so that y'all are on board. But I really don't have any stories to tell you at this point. It's more just about sort of finishing this. So we're getting close. We're almost there. We are almost, and we are there, I think. Yes, I went around that section. Okay, so we can see what it looks like. It's looking okay. Well, there's still a bunch of areas that I missed. So one thing that we can do to make sure that we actually get everything is if you hold down Option Click, you can actually see where you painted. So at this point, what I can do is I can, use my brush tool on this actually, and I can paint in all these areas that I missed. It's going to make it, a lot easier on me to not have to like look at the image and just look at these black and white areas that I need to get, to make sure that it's, completely filled in. And remember, if you have a soft brush that you're using, like mine at 30%, it might be a good idea to try and just go over a decent amount of the areas also, so that you don't get, like little spots where it's like faded. So again, I'm just trying to, brush everything back in. So with having a soft brush like that, I didn't do that great of a job around that button, but that's okay for now. Because we're just trying to, get to a point where we're going to be happy with this. So yeah, I see like all those little spots right there where we didn't get it fully in. So at this point, I'm probably going to move to a smaller brush to just get into these tinier spaces that we're working with. So make sure I get this all in. So and this is something that I will be checking on your images. So now that I have that done, I can go back and hold Option click on that again, and we can see how that looks. It's looking pretty good. I might go in and change the color of it a little bit, and I can actually move it out of here since this is this is the shirt. And I could make sure to name these shirt also, or skin also if I wanted to. But since they're in the group, I think it's fine where they are. But again, I can duplicate this layer if I wanted to. I might add like a green over top because it does look a little bit overcast out. So having a little bit of green in there, maybe like 11%. Like it is barely anything. If you look, really close at this and you see the visibility on and off, it's not changing it too much, but it's just changing it enough. So that is pretty much what we need to do for all these areas. So I did the shirt. I'm gonna do this other shirt. I'm gonna do their eyes. I'm gonna do their mouths. I'm gonna do their hats. All of that. Maybe even do their fingernails until I get to somewhere around 25. But even with skin, just trying to blend the skin, I feel like I got it pretty easily in 3 steps. But who knows? I might actually change that when I get farther in. So that's enough for us to get started on this. Again, this will take time to do. So make sure to give yourself time to be able to do this. If you have questions, feel free to get in contact. Thank you.